So now I'm going to be talking about who can actually lead the prayer. So Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So when deciding who can lead the prayer, you face a dilemma. So if you go to an unknown place, it's time for prayer, you don't know who to pick. You usually look at the person who is the most righteous among us, but this is an assumption and this is not right. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam taught us how to choose, and he says the person who knows the Quran best should lead the prayer. And if they're all equal, they all memorize the same amount of the Quran, then the most knowledgeable among them in the Sunnah. And if they're all equal, then the first one that migrated. If they all migrated at the first time, then the first of them to embrace Islam. When the Prophet ﷺ says the one who among them has the most knowledge of the Book of Allah is referring, as some scholars say, to the knowledge in prayer. They said when the Prophet ﷺ said this, he was addressing the companions, and all the companions were knowledgeable of the rituals of Salat, the fiqh of Salat, and how to perform it. As for the Quran, they said it cannot mean that he has knowledge in the memorization of the Quran. When a person is ignorant in how to offer the prayer in the case of mistakes, this is one of the views of the scholars. Because at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he used to combine between knowledge and action. So they used to not only memorize the Quran, they also used to implement it. Some people are amazing reciters, but they don't have the knowledge of the Salah. They're oblivious in the sense they make a mistake, and they don't know whether to repeat the Salah, to rectify it, or to offer the prostrations of Sahu. They don't differentiate between pillars, mandatory acts, and voluntary acts. This is one of the views of the scholars. Others say that the hadith is crystal clear. What counts is how much and how good you are in the perfection in the recitation of the Quran, and it seems that the first opinion is stronger than the latter one. And that if we have two people, if we have one who can recite the Quran good, but ignorant in the rulings of Salah, and someone who recites the Quran lesser than the first one and knows the rulings of Quran, the latter is supposed to lead the prayer. If you have the same amount of knowledge and knowledgeable in the Sunnah, the recitation of the Quran, knowing how to pray, then we go to other types of knowledge, and this is what is more knowledgeable in the Sunnah than the others. So we have to look into the knowledge of the other people and assess both of them. Then we point forward if they have knowledge in the Quran, Sunnah and Fiqh. We check both. If they're both the same, then we see who migrated, who took the step forward, came to migrate and left the lands of Kufr. If they're not equal, which one accepted Islam, and so forth. We need to acknowledge that sometimes it's not a public place that we are disputing who is leading the prayer. Sometimes we're in someone's home. In this case, the default is that the owner of the house, whether he knows Quran or doesn't, is the one obliged and who is more worthy of leading the prayer. And sometimes we're in places of authority. So if you're in the office, the manager of the office is more worthy of leading. If you're in a country, in the house of the ruler, the authority of the supervisor, he should lead the prayer. This is because the Prophet ﷺ stated this by saying, no man should lead another man in prayer in the place where he has authority, or sit in his place of honor in his house except with his permission. There are people that may lead the prayer and it's valid, and there are people that may lead the prayer but it's invalid. Among those who may be confused with are a boy who has reached the age of puberty, so they can differentiate, they can tell what is right and wrong, discriminate between this, and the boy wants to lead a 74 years old man. If the boy has ability and knows what he's doing, then he can lead the grown up man. Amr ibn Salama used to lead his tribe when he was 6 or 7 years of age, as reported by Imam Bukhari, and he knew the Quran better than anyone else, and this is why the Prophet ﷺ said he should lead you. Also, sometimes we are confused with someone who is praying voluntary prayers could lead someone who is praying his fard, or the opposite. So people think that the Imam and the followers should have the same intention. That is not the case. Muad ibn Jabal used to lead his tribe in Isha prayer after praying behind the Prophet ﷺ in the masjid. After concluding his prayer with the Prophet, he used to go to his tribe. He used to lead them in voluntary prayer for him, but for fard prayer for them, and this is totally permissible. The scenario is that you go to the masjid late, the prayer is over, and you find someone praying behind the pillar. You don't know if he has prayed fard or voluntary, so I go and tap him on the right shoulder, stand next to him to his right, and say, Allahu Akbar. He now notices that I'm praying next to him, so he becomes my imam. If he was praying only the sunnah, he becomes my imam. He continues his sunnah, I follow him, and this is totally permissible and valid. Also, if a person leading the prayer is praying fard, and this was reported in a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, a man of the companions prayed with the Prophet ﷺ, Jabir ibn Zayd, when he was young. When the prayer was concluded, two men, the Prophet noticed that they did not pray with the congregation. So he asked the companions to summon them. They came shivering, afraid, and the Prophet said, why don't you pray with us? They justified by saying, O Prophet of Allah, we have already prayed in our camps. So we prayed as soon as the adhan was given, and we came, and when we came and found you guys praying, so we sat down. So the Prophet said to them, do not do that again. If anyone were to pray in this camp and then comes and finds that the Imam was praying and did not conclude his prayer, he was join the Imam. For you, it's voluntary. The scholars say the reason why we join the Imam, even if it's voluntary, is done so that others would not think negatively of you. So if you're sitting in the car not praying, they'll think you're a hypocrite or disbeliever or someone that neglects his prayers. Therefore, the Prophet is telling us sometimes we would clarify our duty and reputation. If a wrongdoer, evildoer, innovator, or sinner is leading the prayer, as long as he is a Muslim, whether he's a wrongdoer or not, you can lead the prayer. The prayer is valid. The Prophet ﷺ said they will lead you in prayer, so if you get it right, you'll be rewarded. If they get it wrong, then you'll be rewarded, but it will count against them. So the sin is on the Imam then. This was the doing and understanding of the companions. For example, Abdullah ibn Umar prayed behind Hajjaj ibn Yusuf Takafi, and he is one of the most evil individuals who killed a lot of the Tabi'in for Abdullah ibn Zubair. The prayer is valid, but not the ideal situation. It is totally prohibited to pray behind women. The prayer is invalid and is an innovation because the Prophet made the position of the woman and men different in congregation to be the men in front and women at the back. You would be going against the instruction of the Prophet ﷺ. If a woman wants to lead other women, she can. This was done at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet approved of it. Women should stand in the same row of other rows, not in the front row of them. This is how Mother Aisha used to lead the other women in prayer, and also Salama used to lead other women and by standing with them in the same line. If a woman wants to lead men, it is haram, sinful, and the prayer is invalid. Coming late to Salat is not recommended. The Prophet ﷺ had encouraged men to join the first rows to the best of their ability and follow me in prayer, and let those who come after you follow you. People will persist in falling back until Allah puts them back. This is a sunnah to come early and attain the first row and not come in late and barge in others. So I'll leave you here for Amanillah. Wa sallallahu wa baraka ala nabina Muhammad. Astaghfirullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.